the book has to be written because we need new leaders and we need to know how to lead differently. The old style leadership is not working. Have you heard about things like quiet quitting? This is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. Fake it till you make it. No, we need leaders that are really in touch with people. You know, problem is we've been telling leaders, look at statistics, look at numbers, look at the computer, sit in your office, have meetings. That's where they spend over 75% of their time. No, you got to get out there with the people on the front line. We have neglected the frontline employees as a nation, and we underpay them. They're the ones doing the work. People on production lines at Medtronic that, you know, they'd rather die than have a product that wasn't top quality. The people in the labs inventing things, people in the marketplace coming up with creative ideas and supporting customers. That's where you got to be today. And so I think the entrepreneurs that we're talking to here are much more oriented that way. A lot of the large traditional leaders think they're leading by what I would call old line management principles that don't work today.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about the shift of leadership. Leadership is changing. And if you haven't realized it yet, you're probably behind the times. But command and control will no longer work and serve you. Doing things from power and strict charisma used to work. But what's needed now is courageous leaders who are vulnerable, who can connect with the people, who can actually lead people and not just manage projects. Our special guest today is Bill George. He is the former chair and CEO of Medtronic, huge equipment manufacturer, medical equipment, that is, and he wrote True North. So we're going to talk about his book, some of the findings inside there. But what you'll find in today's interview is the shift of leadership requires you to look at things differently, requires you to be introspective about yourself and ask yourself this one question: how well did you lead your people today? Now, I know it's a big question, but if you should be thinking about this every day, and you should be learning in this journey. It's not about getting it right. It's about evolving and changing and shifting. Be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to be courageous and ask for help. All of those things unpacked in today's conversation about the shift of leadership. My job is to help you be the best leader you can be. I reach out into my network to find the best candidates of people who have a good voice about what is necessary for you to understand and for you to apply to be a better leader. Now, a lot of this is overkill for you. And many times you just want a personalized approach. And I get it. I'd love to be that person for you. If you go to my website, you can find a link to schedule your call with me. And a lot of people think, I've never reached out and I've asked for help before. I've figured it out myself. But what does it hurt you to talk about this? I've been an executive coach for about 12 years now. And I say this confidently. I know that I can help you see things differently from a different perspective. There's a gap in thinking. I've had them and I've had the breakthroughs and they've been phenomenal. And I do this day in and day out for my clients. And if you're listening to this and you want to be a better leader, you want to make this shift of leadership, all you have to do is go to genehammett.com and find a time on my schedule that works for you. And let's chat about your business. Let's really dive into it. Hold nothing back. If you want to use the plan and move forward, absolutely take it and run with it. If you want to get support from me to help you or my team to help you and your team develop these leadership skills in this new era, then all you have to do is go to genehammett.com and take action. Schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Bill. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gene. Thank you for having me on your show.
Excited to have you. Your reputation precedes you, and we're going to have a great conversation about your new book, True North.
Thank you.
The Emerging Leader Edition. That's kind of what picked out to me on this title. Tell me a little bit about your background so their audience can get a feel for who you are.
Well, my background, Gene, is I was in corporate world for 33 years and wound up leading Medtronic as COO and CEO, a total of 13 years board chair. And then I went off and was young because I put a 10-year limit on being CEO, and I went to Harvard Business School after a year and a half in Switzerland. And my whole goal is to have an impact on the younger leaders coming along, many of whom are becoming CEOs now. In Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z, because I think we need a new form of leadership. The kind of leaders we had back in the 90s, it was all about ego, charisma, self-interest, power-based leadership, and this won't work today. Command and control leadership is dead. So the kind of leaders we need today know how to engage and lead, particularly the millennial generation of employees, And we're seeing a lot of issues with people that don't know how to do that. So I'm trying to write a book to help people become better leaders.
Well, fantastic. You're in the right place. We have a lot of people that are founders, CEOs listening in here, and they're feeling, some challenges. They're feeling a little bit of overwhelm.
Yeah.
Because it comes naturally when you're growing fast. Most of my clients are on the Inc. 5000. They're not really big companies, but they're growing at an astronomical pace. There's a lot of chaos they deal with. They're also having challenges with misalignment. People not really understanding, and connected to the mission and the vision of where they should be. I think leaders do a really poor job. They focus on the projects and the goals, but they're not looking at some of the other things. Now, these are just a couple of the areas. Are you seeing any other specific areas that are challenges for today's leaders?
Well, today leaders are being asked to speak out on a lot of public issues. But I'd like to talk about, you said a lot of them are a lot of people following are in the Inc. 5000. The very first story in the book that I focus on is an outstanding young leader, Kabir Bardey, who's only 34 years old, who was number one for 3 years of growth on the Inc. 5000. He formed a company called OneTrust, 48,000% growth over that period of time. But he was literally killing himself trying to build the company. And he had a terrible health situation. He had flown to London so he could work on Thanksgiving Day because the Brits don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And he got terribly ill, went to a hospital. They told him he had to stay in. He abandoned that, went to Belgium. And again, he got excruciating pain, didn't know what it was. Finally came home, got to the Mayo Clinic, and it really turned out to be extreme stress of trying too hard. And what Kabir said, that it was very wise, is this experience has maybe changed my whole life and rethink my leadership. And he is a much better leader today because he's delegating more to his people. He's not trying to do it all. He's not trying to be the man. And he's much more appreciative of his family as a young child. But here's a young guy that, could have gone off the cliff and we wouldn't have known who he was. And now he's doing an extraordinary job, both as a leader and as an entrepreneur. That's just one example, but there are a lot more.
I'm glad you brought that story up because I think a lot of people think that they just keep pushing over and over. They keep ignoring the signs. I've been there time or two within.
So have I, by the way.
And that's one reason why it's important for this message to come out. I always ask this of authors. We don't have as many authors as we used to. I mean, a lot of the people, the books behind me, I've actually talked to, but why does this book have to be written and why you?
Well, the book has to be written because we need new leaders and we need to know how to lead differently. The old style leadership is not working. Have you heard about things like quiet quitting? This is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. Fake it till you make it. No, we need leaders that are really in touch with people. Problem is we've been telling leaders, look at statistics, look at numbers, look at the computer, sit in your office, have meetings. That's where they spend over 75% of their time. No, you got to get out there with the people on the front line. We have neglected the frontline employees as a nation and we underpay them. They're the ones doing the work. People on production lines at Medtronic that, they'd rather die than have a product that wasn't top quality. The people in the labs inventing things, people in the marketplace coming up with creative ideas and supporting customers. That's where you got to be today. And so I think the entrepreneurs that we're talking to here are much more oriented that way. A lot of the large traditional leaders think they're leading by what I would call old line management principles that don't work today. That's why we need a new book. Why me? I don't know. I can't say why me, but I will say this. I spent the last 20 years of my life working intensely with young leaders. That's what I do, all the way from MBAs up to younger CEOs, new CEOs. We got a program coming up at Harvard Business School in 2 weeks, a group of extraordinary younger CEOs. And so I feel like I spent about 2 to 3 hours a day in my office when I'm at school, listening to their stories, hearing where they're coming from and understanding them. So that's kind of my form of informal research. Plus I've interviewed 220 of them to really understand in depth where they're coming from. And leadership is changing dramatically, Gene. So that's what we need to do. We have leaders that are really in touch with how the people have changed. Employees have agency today. That's different. So
now this term quiet quitting, you may not know about it. Maybe you've read a few articles, but let me just give you my 2 cents on it. The quiet quitting rage came up in July. Someone on TikTok mentioned it and framed it and put a name to it. And it just took off virally. But the reality is people in your organization have been disengaged for a long time. They're doing the bare minimum. Maybe they're doing just what their job requires of them. And They call it balance. They call it boundaries. And I get those things. But when you lead powerfully, you're inspiring people to give that extra effort. And maybe it's not asking them to work, nights and weekends. Maybe it is just inspiring them to be really focused when they are working and truly adding value to the organization. Those people are not quiet quitting. Those people feel something inside them. Now, are you the leader that can engage that? Can you inspire them? Well, if you don't, you'll find quiet quitting to be something that's going on in your organization. People doing the bare minimum, people just getting by and doing enough to not quit. There's actually videos out there telling people how to do this. And one of them I saw, and makes sense. Don't do it abruptly, do it slowly. My hope is that you will be a leader that can tune into these things. You will see people, you will have the kind of conversations that avoid quiet quitting. The shift of leadership is real and it needs you to step up. Back to the interview with Bill. You touched on a little bit about how leadership is changing. One of the big things that stood out was command and control no longer works. So if that doesn't work, what is working for today's leadership?
Empowering people that you work with. And so we developed a new model that's called the leader as coach. So think of yourself about a great sports coach you had. That's the kind of leaders we need today, who care about their employees. What's going around is, frankly, if your manager doesn't care about you, that's why you leave the company. And you're not going to give everything you've got, mind, body, and spirit, unless you feel somebody cares about you. But we need to organize people where they're most effective. I had 2 decades of people trying to fix my weaknesses, and unfortunately, I never fixed them. They're still there. I'm still impatient. I'm still tend to be outspoken. But, we need to organize people where their strengths are used and where they're highly motivated. And a lot of companies are not doing that. And then third, we need to align people around sense of purpose and values. And so can you align your own personal purpose? Why are you leading? It's tough work. Why are you doing this? Can you align that with the organization's purpose and values? And then finally, I believe that like a good coach, you challenge people to reach their full potential. That's my whole mission in life, is to challenge people to reach their full potential. It's not soft. There's nothing soft about this form of leadership. And then last of all, get out and work with your people, help them, get in there, help solve problems, work with people. Don't stand back and judge them like the old line leaders did. So those are all reasons why we need a different kind of leader.
You're working with a lot of different people, and many times they have beliefs that come with them. Maybe they're myths or things that just aren't true. What would you say that they believe that isn't true that you wish they knew better?
That being charismatic is important to be a leader. Just be real, be who you are. Another thing that isn't true is don't admit your mistakes. They may drag you down. No, you got to admit your mistakes. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing. It took me a long time to get comfortable being vulnerable, I'll be honest. And I think leaders need to get comfortable being vulnerable around the people they're closest to and admitting where they made mistakes and asking for help. A lot of people think I should have all the answers. No, you never have all the answers. I thought I had all the answers too. No, you want to ask people for help and they'll give it to you.
Bill, I'm an executive coach as well, and I have worked with a lot of people, and I had a great call last week. And the guy honestly said to me straight up, I've never asked for help in my life. And something you said invited me to have this conversation. And I really know, and he's one of those command and control types. He literally referred to himself as the hammer. And I get it, but he's stepping up and saying, I'm willing to see it a different way. I'm willing to change. What does it take for people that are willing to see from a different perspective this type of leadership you're talking about?
Well, it starts with people like you that can coach them. I don't know why their managers or the person they're working for can't be a coach too, although you're a professional one. But I think it's getting at and getting people, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid to ask for help? And by the way, any good leader, in my opinion, surrounds himself with people who are smarter than they are and more capable. I've tried to do that my entire career. I started my first general manager job when I was 27 years old. I was starting the consumer microwave oven business. And yeah, I needed a lot of help. I was hiring people twice my age and twice my salary to help run the business, who knew the business. So you need to ask for help because that's the sign of a strong leader. A strong leader today is willing to be vulnerable and admit his or her mistakes. So that's the kind of indications. And I think, but you all need coaches. What do you call them? Coaches, mentors. People will tell you the truth and tell you what you don't want to hear. A lot of people, when you get a leadership role, they tell you how great you are. That's not going to help you. And you may go off the rails listening to them.
So just a reminder here, anybody listening in, we're talking to Bill George, co-author of True North. You've got a lot of interesting stories in here. I think one of the things that you haven't touched on yet, and maybe there's a few other things behind this, but as I was looking through the book, you really believe in a people-based program, right? It's not just getting the projects done. It's about the people. I've been told that my thinking around this is wrong, that it's always about executing. It's about everything else. It's like, well, the people are what allow us to scale. Why are being people-focused leadership much more important today?
Well, what else is there? Just think about it. I was doing a seminar for a company that has 300,000 people. It's a big global company, as you can guess. I said, you may love your brands, your products have been around for 50 or 100 years. No. Your value walks out the door every night when they go home. That's the value of the company. That's what makes you stand out. In the long run, intellectual property, patents, innovation, those things tend to converge. And what really is important is the quality of your people. Do they get it? Are they better than your competitors? If they're not, you got a big problem. So you really want to have, and I think today people are not going to work for you. I can tell you this great resignation that's going on, Gene. What's triggering that is because people don't find a sense of purpose. What happened to General Electric? World's greatest company in the 20th century. I think we generally agree. My father taught me that when I was a little boy, but it's gone. There is no GE. There are a couple of divisions left, like jet engines and MRI machines, but there's no General Electric. Why? Because their only mission was making money. People don't want to work for a company that mission. They say, "Oh, we're making money for you. Why do I want to spend my life doing that?" They want to do something that's meaningful. That's who we talked about at Medtronic. But it isn't just Medtronic. One of the people I feature in the book is Hugh Berger-Lee, who turned around Best Buy when it was totally failing. He created a whole new culture, and he calls it human magic. And the excitement that people have about helping people get the technology they need to change their lives and rethinking everything. So it doesn't have to just be in the healthcare business. And you need to have that alignment between your people's dreams, hopes, goals, and the companies.
Bill, I want to take you into a little bit of deeper dive into this, the practical and actionable. It sounds like you do some speaking as well as I do. And every meeting organizer goes, leave the audience with something very practical that they can take away. It's tangible. What would you share right now about this new model of leadership that is very practical and actionable for our audience?
Well, first of all, you need to take 20 minutes every day, maybe twice a day, and put all the electronics aside and the task list and just reflect on how you showed up as a leader. Be introspective. Good leaders today are introspective. Think about, did I do a good job today? How did I treat my people? Was I excited and fulfilled about my work? And not every day is going to be like that, but if there are too many days that are negative, you need to rethink your whole life. Second, you need to have truth tellers around you. You need to have people that tell you what's going on and tell you what you don't want to hear. And so that whole idea of having a support team that will tell you, help you, and tell you how you're doing. Both help you and tell you how you're doing. I think 360 feedback. If I were an entrepreneur, I'd run 360 feedback with all my people, find out. And I made the policy at Medtronic, I would not promote anyone until I had 360 feedback on how they were seen by their subordinates and their peers. If they weren't respected and liked by their subordinates and their peers, then no matter how highly I thought of them, they weren't the right person to promote. So I think those two things are things you can take away with you.
Now, Bill just talked about 360-degree feedback. Now, this is a really good idea. Every time I've done this for my clients, we do charge money for this, but it has been phenomenal. The insights have been really great. Here's my process. I have a list of questions, which I'll give you. If you send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, I'll give you the questions we ask, and you can use the tools we use, absolutely free. But you have to take action and do that. But we take in the forms, and there's some questions where we can get some numerical value out of it. And we also have some open-ended questions all inside this form we'll give you. And then I do interviews. I do specific interviews with people, urging them to share with me. I'm not going to go back to them by name, but we're going to organize the data and give a 360-degree feedback to that executive. Now, why is this so helpful? Because every time there's something insightful that is getting in the way. I remember one leader who wasn't present inside of meetings, and he didn't know it, but he found out in the 360, and we can make that shift once we know. Another leader who got this 360-degree feedback was always showing late to meetings, and he expected everyone else to be on time, but it was okay for him to be late, and it was just something he had done a lot, and he didn't realize it was an issue until the 360-degree feedback. So There's so many things you probably just don't know. These are called blind spots, because if you knew it, you'd be aware to fix it, but you don't know them. In the 360-degree feedback, we find the blind spots. That being said, if you want the free questions, just reach out to me, Gene at Hammett, and ask for the 360-degree feedback form, and I will give it to you absolutely for free, no cost, and happy to help. Now back to the interview with Bill. Love those things. Be introspective. I think a lot of leaders get confused about their job. They think it's just about execution, when I think it's about execution and developing the people around you.
Yeah.
When you think about developing the people around you, what's a big mistake that people are making, and what can we do to overcome that mistake?
Well, particularly for entrepreneurs, my co-author, Zach Clayton, is a brilliant tech entrepreneur, built a very successful company, but for a while he's trying to do it all himself. And he was trying to execute himself. And he got a comeuppance when he did a 360 review, and his people told him, hey, Zach, it's all about you. We don't want to work just for you. We want to work for our goals too. And so he totally changed his own leadership. And I think a lot of people, I had to go through that. I was driving so hard to execute and pressuring people. Didn't work. You really have to get people who are inspired. They'll do the execute. Who's doing the execute? It's the frontline people. That's what I would say, is make sure you take care of the front line. Don't pay all this money, tens of millions of dollars, to consultants and have too much middle management. Focus on frontline people that are delivering the work. That's the people that made the difference in Medtronic. They built Medtronic, I can assure you.
Bill, I know that bigger companies are spending money on leadership training. A lot of that's being wasted because they're getting the wrong kind of training. They're going to the wrong places. It's a lot of theory-based, I find. I don't know exactly what the Harvard Business School program is, but I have literally clients that said, we've gone and gotten certificates, we've gotten these things. The theories don't work. We need practical, actionable stuff. And we need our leaders, like the emerging leaders that are truly on the front lines in that middle management tier. How do you recommend engaging them into the skills of leadership to give them a solid foundation?
Gene, you just said it well. We're churning out millions of managers and not nearly enough leaders. No one talks about values and purpose. In the courses I teach at Harvard, that's all we talk about. And we convert it. And you got to talk about that with people to find out where they live and what would inspire them, because they're not going to give you their whole selves, mind, body, and spirit. They aren't going to lead with their hearts. Today, leadership's all about leading with your heart. You're not going to lead with your heart unless you feel somebody cares about you. And so that's why you need to engage people. Frankly, you learn leadership on the job. Now, in my classes at Harvard, we talk about how you do that. Then you talk about what you learn on the job, what mistakes you made. When did you ever violate your own values? What did you learn from that experience? What are the real challenges you faced and where you felt it was all stripped away and didn't go your way? What'd you learn from that experience? But I think then put people in challenging situations. The key today, Gene, is that we're in a series of multiple intersecting crises right now. We've never been like that. We used to have stable times in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, all of a sudden, we not just have 9/11 and global financial meltdown, we have 5 things intersecting, and they're influencing all of us. We haven't seen this kind of inflation in 40 years, and the Russia's war and the aftermath of COVID and the psychology. It's not COVID so much today, it's the post-COVID psychology. So if you aren't out there with people, you don't know how to lead. So you lead by doing. Throw yourself in there. Don't sit in the C-suite and do PowerPoint charts. Get out and be with the people and spend your time. I spent 60% of my time out with employees and customers in Medtronic, just walking around saying, hey, what's going on? Tell me. I learned more from that, far more than I did sitting in meetings with fancy charts.
I agree with you. I'll give you one last chance to wrap this up, put a bow on it, if you will. You talked a couple of times about leading with heart. I think a lot of people can confuse that. Sometimes they're too nice. Sometimes they're too empathetic. I'm having these conversations quite often with my clients. To you, what is leading with heart, and how do you know when you've gone too far?
Well, you have to have passion for the business. No question about that. And I think you have to have some compassion for your customers. If Medtronic puts out an effective product, people's lives are at risk. You have to have compassion and admit your mistakes. You have to have empathy for your employees. People are going through tough times, but I think you have to have real courage. Courage is not soft. It's willing to put it all on the line. That's what entrepreneurs do in particular. That's why they're doing so well. They put it all on the line, and they're willing to live with the outcomes or make adaptations as they go. And see, I think it's that leader who is challenging people. So yes, I'm very challenging. I bet you're challenging as a coach too, Gene, because if you don't, you're not helping people. You're not telling them. And so it's not soft at all. And I think people do confuse being soft. It's not. It is, but being real, being authentic, and being real with people and saying, hey, I need your help. Or I can learn from you. And so I think that there's a humility that goes with that at the same time. And I think that's what produces the numbers. It's not just driving for $3.91 a share. That's what produces the numbers.
We're wrapping up our conversation about True North with Bill George. Bill, thank you for sharing your insights, your research. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's fantastic to be here.
Wow, what a great interview. I really love his specific examples of what you can do, right? Be introspective and truly help yourself grow the business. The other thing he mentioned in there was surround yourself with truth tellers. Sorry, got my tongue tied there. Truth tellers. You don't need yes men or yes women. You need people who are willing to tell you the things. It doesn't have to be me or some other coach. You want to make sure that you have people that have the courage and confidence to tell you like it is, and for you guys to figure out how to move forward together. We aren't looking for someone who just tells you all the bad things. We're looking for someone that can truly engage with you in the kind of conversation and dialogue that helps you grow from that and evolve. Today, we were talking about his book, True North, the Emerging Leader Edition. So it really is a great conversation. Hopefully you took a lot of notes. I did as well. And you want to be the better leader. If I can help you in any way, make sure you reach out, let me know. When you think of leadership and you think of growth, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, think with courage. We'll see you next time.